Hi guys, as always, starting out by thanking my new subscribers and everyone watching my videos. So, if you're on Twitter, and if you keep up with all this DC stuff, which if you're watching this video, you probably do, people have been freaking out the past couple days over things that I don't think people should be freaking out about. Yesterday, people were making a big deal out of...
Hi.
Yeah, you can say hi.
Hi.
People are making a big deal out of Danny Elfman. He made some comments regarding the Justice League score, specifically Superman's theme. And for some, for some context, we know that Danny Elfman took over. Not necessarily took over, but it was originally Hans Zimmer, Junkie XL. They did Man of Steel and BVS, and they were doing Justice League, but now, you know, Danny Elfman is doing the score, did the score. From what I think he said, I'm pretty sure he's done with the score, but talking, you know, in regards to the Superman theme, if you're anything like me, the Man of Steel theme that Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL did for Man of Steel, BVS, Superman's theme is just beautiful, amazing. I go on for quite a bit about it in my Man of Steel video that I uploaded recently, so check that one out if you're interested in seeing why I love Man of Steel so much. But I think we all fell in love with the Man of Steel theme, and so we also hear it we also have it in BVS during the Superman scenes, and we all, like, they kind of all that always happens when I'm recording a video. I know, it's loud. It's loud, I know. You know, Batman, Wonder Woman, they all have kind of their own theme. Even Lex did in BVS, had his own, like, little psychedelic theme song. But when Danny Elfman was making some comments about Superman's theme, he was talking about bringing back the original John Williams Superman theme from, like, the Richard Donner, Christopher Reeves films. Very well-known theme. It's very recognizable. It's, you know, has a special place in Superman fans' hearts. He was talking about that he had, like, 2 minutes of that melody to use, and that he uses it in a dark way for a dark moment in the movie. That's what he said. People took the headline, that the headlines were coming out with this article because of his comments, saying that, you know, Danny Elfman is bringing John Williams' original Superman theme back to Justice League. And I think a lot of people see that, and then they're just like, oh my god, we're not going to have the Man of Steel theme anymore. We're not going to have the Hans Zimmer Superman theme anymore. Now we're gonna have the original one again, and it's just gonna ruin the movie. And, like, people start freaking out before they even read his comments. And, like, if you read what he said 2 minutes, and he also said, which this is the important part, okay, also that he uses it in a dark way for a dark moment, but he also said some fans will notice it, some fans won't. So if he is saying that, to me, that means it's not going to be super obvious whenever it comes up in the movie. He also said that it's in a dark moment when we're not sure what side he's on, which, you know, people can interpret that to mean lots of different things regarding Superman. But, you know, if he's saying that some people won't even notice it, then obviously it's not going to be in your face, and, like, you know, it's not going to, it might not, that could mean it might not sound even very close to the original John Williams Superman theme song. It's just, you know, he's using it in a way with other music. Like, I don't think it's not a big deal. Like, that doesn't mean that they're just scrapping the Man of Steel Hans Zimmer theme song and just only going to use, that's not, I think a lot of people were taking that to mean as we're not going to have the Hans Zimmer Man of Steel theme anymore, and now it's just going to be the original one again. That's why we have to read the articles when stuff like this comes out, to make sure we have the facts. The thing is, stuff is still getting twisted and misconstrued when we have direct comments and quotes from the people working on the movie. And it's because people see these headlines and just interpret it one way and start tweeting about it and writing articles about it, and it's not even what was said. So, you know, and then another thing going on today that's kind of the same thing is happening again is there was an interview with Vulture with Geoff Johns and Diane Nelson. As we know, Geoff Johns is the DC Films president and Diane Nelson is the DC Entertainment president, but they were talking about the future. It was a pretty long interview, but the big takeaway from the interview is that the future of the DCEU, they were discussing that they're going to feel more like standalone films. And sometimes people misunderstand that to mean that they're going to be totally separate from the universe. That's not what that means. They gave the reference of Wonder Woman. So Wonder Woman was a standalone film because, yes, we see the Bruce Wayne, you know, references in the movie in the beginning and the end when they're showing present day. You know, he sends her the letter, sends her, I got your original picture, can you tell me your story? We see all that. But the main plot of the Wonder Woman movie was standalone because it didn't fall in a certain place in a whole timeline that connects to the other DCEU movies. So her movie doesn't necessarily affect the other DCEU movies because it's her origin movie. It's just her story, her movie. Yes, like I know we have the Bruce Wayne, those little connections in there, but from BVS, but it's not like her movie necessarily affects the whole universe. It's just her story, her movie. And there's not like cameos, you know, from Batman and other people like that, which obviously wouldn't make sense because it's set in a different time era, but that's what they're saying is that, you know, going forward, not all these movies are going to necessarily connect to each other and revolve around a central storyline. They're all going to have their own plot, their own story. There probably will still be like little connections here and there between the movies and the characters and stuff, but not just a central story that they all revolve around. You know, one movie is probably not going to necessarily lead to the next movie. You know, they don't all have to just fall in a timeline. So they also, you know, for instance, Aquaman will be the next one after Justice League that we see. And you know, Aquaman's going to have its own story, its own plot. It's not going to affect or connect to the rest of the universe. And I think, don't misinterpret that, like I said, to mean that it's not part of the shared universe. Yes, we know that these characters are still going to exist in the same universe. Obviously, we're going to see them in Justice League before we get the next solo movies, but you know, like, okay, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman and Suicide Squad connect. They have connections between them. Obviously, we know that. And like I said, those little connections in Wonder Woman, but you know, they're not going to just all revolve around a central story leading to the next movie and then build up to one event, I guess, if you want to say that. So we first heard about this when Matt Reeves made his comments about the Batman being a standalone film, which was also misinterpreted, and then he came out and cleared it up by saying that yes, it's still the same Batman in the same universe, but it's not going to fall in a certain place in the timeline, and you know, whatever happens in this movie is not going to be affected by what's happened in other movies prior to it, or you know, whatever happens in it is not going to necessarily affect other movies, like other characters' movies, Aquaman, you know, Wonder Woman 2 and stuff like that. So, you know, people, like I said, misinterpreted what he said when he first made his comments, and then he came out and cleared it up, which I'm glad he did. But that's essentially what Geoff Johns and Diane Nelson were saying in this interview, is that not every character's story is going to affect the other characters' stories, even though they all exist in the same universe. So people are taking that kind of as a negative thing and saying, oh, they're changing the DCEU, and, you know, Geoff Johns said before that they didn't need to change the DCEU and blah, blah, blah. It's not about the tones of the movies, of the universe. You know, it's more, I don't understand why people are being, like, why are people upset about it? I don't understand what the big deal is if they have these standalone movies that don't necessarily intertwine together. I mean, yes, Marvel decided to do it that way. All their movies connect or on a central storyline, and it's all building up to Infinity War, the Infinity War movies. It's not necessary for DC to do the same thing. I mean, comics, yeah, sometimes there's like, you know, they connect and they lead from one thing to the next, but comics have been around for so long, and, you know, there's so many different versions and different stories for one character, so the movies don't necessarily all have to be connected, just because they exist in the same universe. So, you know, I mean, I don't know why people are taking it as a bad thing. I don't think it's a bad thing that that they all have, like, Diane Nelson made the specific comment that the movies will come from the heart of the filmmaker that's doing that specific movie. So, I mean, I just don't understand why people are freaking out about it. You know, I don't know. I don't see why it's a big deal if they don't all revolve around a central story. I really don't. I don't think it's a bad thing if Aquaman's movie is not related to the Batman movie. Why do they, you know, we can have separate plots just because they all exist in the same universe. You know, I mean, it's not a big deal. I think people just need to calm down. Obviously, if you loved how the DCEU is going so far, if you love Man of Steel, if you love BVS, if you love Wonder Woman, if you like Suicide Squad, like, why are you worried? You know, there's so much that goes on behind the scenes, and these plans that they have and what they want to do. We don't know everything. And, you know, sometimes I think the problem is that this stuff gets public. They come out and do an interview, or they say one thing, they make one statement, or they tweet one thing, and then because of social media and because of, you know, all of it, like, we have all these outlets to find out this information about what's going on. It's like, it's taken away from people just being able to enjoy the movies when they come out, calm down. Like, yes, they might not always have the answers to everything, and yes, sometimes things might get a little hectic or whatever, but obviously they know what they want to do. Obviously they're going to have a plan for what they want to do, what direction they want to go in. And just because they come out and say something all of a sudden doesn't mean it's that they're changing something, just because we don't know about it publicly. So I don't think they would have given us such a big slate of movies at Comic-Con if they didn't have... Say hi! I'm not editing it out either.
You're not what?
I'm not going to edit it out. If they didn't have a plan in some way. I thought you were going to be Avery. So I think people just need to calm down, enjoy the movies. They've done a great job so far. I don't see it going downhill and crashing and burning all of a sudden. So anyway, that's what I have to say. Don't freak out about these things, you know, just enjoy the movies. Sometimes it might be better if we didn't have all these outlets and social media and things to find things out, because it just leads to people misunderstanding and blowing things out of proportion, but oh well. So, links in the description for Twitter, Patreon. Check out thecomicsbolt.com as well. And like, comment, subscribe. Thanks guys, we'll see you next time.